Yeah, continue.
No, I was saying that I want to explore this New Zealand working visa thing because I feel I um like a lot of my life I've been following instructions very well, and I've been like a good student and a very like goody two shoe kind of daughter. So at this point I'm like 27, but I don't really feel that I have made any specific decision for myself versus just following the norms and like making choices that are societally correct and respectable.
Come. Lie on this one.
Why? So I want an opportunity to cliche quote unquote
Find yourself.
I think it's a good opportunity lah. I think you should go for it. Like you already learn a lot about yourself.
See, but what if I go and I realize that this life is not what I want?
That's already learning something about
then
yourself,
yeah lah.
right?
It's just like
It's
how
a very scary it's a very scary thing to find out, no?
no.
Again, I think it's about perspective, right?
Have you spoken to your sister since she went?
Oh no.
Not at all.
Everyone has been asking me, oh, do you call her? Do you talk to her?
Zero
I said
in
zero.
1.5 years there.
Yes.
No text, no call, no FaceTime.
Yes.
Why?
I feel like for me, right, I would want to have, if I were to have a conversation with her, specifically about her experiences,
Yes.
I would want to have it in real life.
No, but at least not it doesn't have to be about her experience, but like, oh hey Tse, how you doing? How you, and then she'll say something like, oh my god, I'm so fucking happy.
Okay, it has been our sibling relationship, our dynamics have been like that for a long time.
Where's your paper hat?
Yeah.
Like I think we have always been able to know what's going on in each other's life while not necessarily having talked a lot.
Then how
So
do you know?
it's quite like a silent, or yeah, you look like you're doing well, or like, oh, you look like you're having some problems. So when we go to each other for stuff, it's usually if there
There's a
is
problem.
really something big, a big decision that is going to happen. Like when she was going to go, she came to tell me. I
She
don't.
came to tell you or she came to like ask
She
you?
came. It was like a part question, a bit like sometimes before you do something, you have already decided but you're still unsure, that kind of thing. So there's no real like updating how each other's life is like at that point of time, but more of like, yeah, I'm going to make this big decision, and then we will kind of support each other, but in a quiet way.
How long was she working before she decided to go?
Well, I have to do the math. So about 2 years ago, she's older than me by 2 years. So
Basically like
she
3 to
went
4 years
poly and then private U. So 3 to 4 years, yeah.
3 to 4 years in a credit card sales role.
Yeah. And it's something that I could already tell that she doesn't like.
Oh, like from the
Because-
moment she joined?
Right from the start, I don't think that her degree was even something that she really enjoyed. Like I never really heard this from her lah, but I
Yeah.
can obviously tell by the way that she's approaching her university or her studies or just the job in general, the kind of demeanor that you get when you come home. Sometimes you can tell from these things that she's just not enjoying herself lah. I've seen her for how many years, right? I kind of know the kind of energy that she'll give when she enjoys something and she doesn't. And you can see that it's been weighing on her mind lah. So when she actually decided to do it, I was very happy.
When she finally decided to do it, like, was that the first time you were hearing about it?
I think so. No, I think it wasn't. She told me this not when she decided to do it, but when she had that idea.
Oh.
But then the second time she told me was when she kind
Already
of firmed up
decided.
most things. So it was like an interest check, like, oh, what if I went versus the second time it was like, yeah, I think I applied for the visa. I think I'm going to New Zealand.
So when she told you she already applied, the second time she told you she already applied.
Yeah, it's just that because COVID hit, I think she didn't go in the end lah. But then she waited until COVID blew over and then she reapplied.
Right.
Which part of New Zealand should you go?
I think it's called
Wanaka.
Wanaka. Ah, yeah.
She always enjoyed snowboarding, is it? Is that why she decided to go work there?
I don't think so. Okay, I think most of her life she also has been pretty like goody two shoes.
She's
Never really.
I need a conversation with her.
I think she followed most of the Singaporean stereotype.
Yeah.
Like, I finished my secondary school, tried to get into a poly or JC. She probably did something that she didn't enjoy in poly, had to go to private U, that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, she took on a job that everyone thinks is respectable, but I don't think she enjoyed. I also see like, I observed that she started bringing home new things when she started to have like money of her own. She bought like skateboards.
Oh.
I think these are things that she never would have thought to try in the past, because my parents would probably be like, oh, why are you skateboarding? Are you not scared of getting injured?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
These
just
are
that
little signs of desperation that you're trying to find yourself. You
It's-
know, like what? Like bleaching your hair out of this.
yeah, like you just want to try different things. Like, I never ever had this kind of impulses, right? Because I feel like I have been quite rebellious in the past.
Really?
So in secondary school, I would do whatever I want. I come home at 10 o'clock. My mom will be like, oh, why are you coming home so late? You should be back by 8. You should be back by 7 for dinner.
Right.
I don't care.
You don't care, you slam your door and you play Simple Plan.
If I want to play football, I'll play football. If I want to play basketball, I'll play basketball.
As in, so it's not like you were a bad kid. It's just that you didn't exactly follow the rules that your mom set for you. You would like
Yeah.
push the boundary. Like she said
Yeah.
8, then you come back 10, or like you come back whatever the hell time you want.
Yeah.
But it's not like you were a bad kid, right?
I mean, I also did my fair share of bad things, so I'm not going to share.
Right.
Especially with the camera here. But I think because of these things, right, the experiences that I've had before, I wouldn't impulsively want to do something at this age. There's also a lot of things that I've seen in other people, right? Or let's say my girlfriend or something. They kind of say things like, oh, I never tried this before, I want to try it. But for me, I don't really get that excitement because it's like I've done it before.
I find this like a very interesting theme because I've had the same discussion with Jerome and his friends, and they all led like a very rebellious growing up life. Like did exactly what they wanted, didn't give shit about either parents or the law. and then the result of that is now when they make a decision, they seem to be a lot more certain and a lot more sure in the decisions that they're making, versus people like, let's say, me and some of my girlfriends who have grown up following the rule, sheltered, doing what was expected of us. And then at some point now you're like, shit, have I been, like, which of these decisions did I make for myself and which of these decisions did I make for my parents or because they're right? And then there's a lot more like indecisiveness and there's a lot more lack of confidence in the decision you're making because you've never, one, outrightly like made an important decision before, and number two, you've never like tried and failed enough times to know like, hey, what the fuck, actually I've tried all this nonsense and I know I don't want to do it. So now we live with the feeling of what if because we've never like taken that risk. Does that make sense?
It does.
You got more what ifs than what was.
Yes.
Like part of it is the experience, right? When I liken it to the workplace, people that have been making decisions for 10 over years, they know what's gonna come out of that. So they are very okay to make that decision. They understand the risk and everything. Whereas sometimes if you are fresh, it's the first time you're making this decision, you wouldn't know what's going on. You wouldn't know how it's gonna turn out. And the other thing is that throughout this process of or trying this, failing, like you said, failing or succeeding, learning about all these things, you kind of understand or learn more about why your parents ask you to do this. Like when sometimes your parents say, oh, you must come home by 10 o'clock, what does that mean? Why did they ask you to come home by 10 o'clock? If you just blindly follow, you sometimes won't understand what the reason behind that is. You just think like, oh, it's just a rule. Okay, I just have to be home by 10 o'clock, but you don't know why. But if you push the boundaries, you come home at 11 o'clock.
And you see what happens.
Yeah, and then you realize that, hey, nothing happened to me or something happened to me. Maybe there's a flasher in the lift. Then you got flashed at. That's just an example.
Yes.
Then you realize that, oh, anything after 10 o'clock is dangerous. But okay, it's not the most right reason, but at least you understand that there is a reason there. But it doesn't have to be like, or whether you can learn that with just following the rules, but I think the parent must educate the kid, like, or why.
On the rationale.
Why
But
I
even
tell
then,
you to come
even
home.
then, even like educating the rationale, I feel like kids should be allowed to fuck up when they're young.
I think it's
If there was
very
one
fair.
thing I would do differently, I think I would really just not follow the rules so much. Because when you're young and you break rules, it's not as, like, the consequences are not as dire. Because when you're young also, like, technically, you know, people are like, oh, you're just a kid, you know, they forgive you. There are some mistakes that you can't afford to make when you're a certain age anymore, because you can't blame it on youth and stupidity and recklessness, because now you're supposed to have known everything.
Youth.
So
But
are you
no-
a what if or what was?
I think my existential crisis was a result of too many what ifs.
And then how did you...
I was a goody two shoes also. Then after my existential crisis, I learned how to ascribe, to be more intentional with what I do.
Can you slow down and take us through the process? First, explain your existential crisis.
No. It's
Briefly.
just because I follow the carved path because of my dad's company, right?
Yes.
So it's like, oh, my whole life my mom was like, oh, your dad has built this company for you. Oh, so like I go out of work, I go into uni, I'm like straight away like, oh, I don't need to pay attention. I'm gonna go to work for my dad anyway. But then like when I ended up working for my dad, it's like, hey, what the fuck am I doing? Do I want this? I'm not happy here. Do I want this? No. So through my whole existential crisis, I went through the whole figuring out of like, why am I doing this? Why am I even here? What's the whole point of anything? And then from there I found out, I came out of the existential crisis understanding, I see, there's really no point to anything. So just do whatever the fuck you want.
What is the how do you get out of the existential crisis? Like, what was that process? And then you said during your existential crisis was all the what ifs. How did you turn the what ifs into what was?
It's more about accepting it. Like, these are things that I have, that this is what I was like and I cannot change it. But this is what I am now, and this is where I can be if I make changes now. So I accepted that I have, not say wasted my uni, but I had a lot of free time in uni that I didn't spend very wisely, and now I have the opportunity to take action now and do things that I actually want now. But before that, I need to figure out what I actually want, right? The point is, no one actually knows anything. So just like,
So how do you figure out what you actually want? That's the key question, right?
I don't know what I want. You don't know what you want.
So now you're
Anyone
saying
can
even now you don't know what you want.
Yeah, I think you only really figure out what you want after you've tried it.
Yeah, it's like I told you, I tried all these business stuff. I have a conclusion from trying all these like mini businesses stuff. One is that my conclusion is that there are only two ways that a person can be motivation. This is an example of a learning that I went through and I had to learn myself. Is that
Okay.
there are only two ways where a person can run a business. Two motivations. Two strong intrinsic motivations. One is survival. You got no fucking choice. You're useless, you need to do something, I need to make money. That's one. Two is something that you actually enjoy doing. Yeah. There's no other. If a person say, "Oh, I just want money," I have money, but I want some more. No, cannot.
Why?
Just motivation is not strong enough. It's not like a. Because in the first case in survival, you have no fucking choice. In the second case,
No, wait. You're making this very black and white because if it's for survival, there's so many other things you can do versus starting a business.
I know. I mean like the motivation to run a business. I'm not saying reasons to start a business. I'm saying the motivation to keep it going. Yeah.
How is money not a strong enough motivation? There's so many people in the world who like keep running a business for money.
No, okay, but that's the second one, which is like you do work that doesn't feel like work. You do work that feels like play. You know? Or like work that you don't fucking hate lah.
My
Like
phone's ringing.
okay, it's answered. Yeah.
I think what Shaz is trying to say is, if let's say you are already secured money-wise, and you want to start a business, and you want to do something that you're not interested in, most likely you will fail.
Okay.
So if you already have your money secured, you start something that is like not really part of your interest, you're just not going to be motivated enough to keep it going. But if you already have the money and you want to start a business, you'll more likely start something that you enjoy or you're interested in. And if you enjoy it enough, you can keep it going.
Okay, but I think I have deviated from the original.
Yes, my point was, how do you get out of your number one, do you think you're out of your existential crisis? And number two, how do you define that moment that you realize, okay, I'm not no longer in an existential crisis? How do you get out of it?
First, the reason I was in an existential crisis in the first place is that, or anyone, is that you look and you think, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I unhappy? So I think for different people it's different, but for me it's like I looked at myself and I was not happy with the person that I was. Right?
Okay.
So then I figured out what exactly about me I'm unhappy about. So I figured out my career situation, my financial situation, kind of same but not really. My social situation, the way I am around friends, my physical situation, the way I look. And then I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with this. What can I do about this? What can I do about this? What can I do about this? And then the next step is just take action. So I started going gym, started damn cringe, but I watched those like how to make conversation kind of videos.
Did it help?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when we hang out in the past, right, I always talk about stupid shit, right? Like, we won't talk about these kind of things,
Yeah.
And like, I don't think I showed interest in your lives. Or at least like maybe I did, but I didn't know how to show it. You know? Like, I won't ask you questions. And like, for some reason, during this whole stage, this is going into the details a bit, but finding out that a conversation consists of just asking a person questions was so groundbreaking to me. You know? Or like showing interest in people's life. And then this is where I learned stuff like, oh, the best way to have a conversation, because like I remember when I joined uni, I was like, oh yeah, I just came out of police, got all these cool police stories, I'm gonna be so interesting. But then like no one really cares. Like people care more about a person who is interested rather than a person who is interesting. Right?
I think it's more like on the flip side, people are just more willing to talk about themselves.
Yeah. So don't aim to be interesting, aim to be interested. Yeah. When like in social situations. Anyway, okay, wait, no, I'm going away from the point. The point being, identify where you are unhappy with, take action to make changes about it.
Okay.
So can I say that your existential crisis all goes back to happiness being your barometer of life or existence?
Meaning and happiness.
People should pursue happiness in life.
No, happiness should be a byproduct. I think you should pursue. I think people should pursue meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, and happiness will be a byproduct of that. Happiness comes from pausing when you are doing these things and being like, hey, you know what? I'm in a not bad place. Okay, there's two trains of thoughts to happiness in psychology. Okay, not two trains, not just two, but there are two trains of thought by the two big wigs in psychology, Daniel Kahneman and Daniel something else. Both Daniels.
Daniel Cole.
So Daniel Kahneman says happiness comes from looking back on a life well lived and being like, I can be proud of this life. The other Daniel says that happiness comes from sitting on the beach, enjoying cups of Mai Tai and just
Being content.
yeah, just chilling, you know. So one is happiness. Happiness comes from a life well lived, and the other one comes from happiness is choosing. You know what I mean? Okay.
Choosing whatever feels good in the present.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have this thought in the past, or like this, the way of life I want to lead. I don't know whether it's happiness or content, but the idea is that I would just do whatever makes me happy. Which is also the reason why I kind of broke so many rules, right? I think that helped that kind of.
But it's such a foreign concept to some people,
It
and
is.
they won't know what makes them happy.
Mm.
Like you have to go through some unhappiness to figure out what makes you happy.
So growing up, based on that concept, right, I also learned that a person can never be always happy. You have to have unhappiness to know what happiness is.
Yeah.
It's like if all food tasted the same, you won't find one better than the other. You won't really have a preference. You only find something that is really good when you've tasted something that's really shit. And you're like, wow, this thing is distasteful. And then you taste something else after and like, wow, shit, this is so good.
So people shouldn't strive for happiness. They should strive for contentment.
I think contentment and purpose are both very good like barometers. I think both trains of thoughts that you brought up were very good ways to lead your life, right? I do feel happy when I do something purposeful, which is what I try to do when I look for when I was searching for my job, or when I wanted to decide what I wanted to do in university or in my life. I wanted to do something purposeful because I think that would make me happy. And being content is also, I would say, a way of attaining that happiness.
How do you define purpose?
Um,
Is your job now purposeful?
I think it is. Okay, so just a backstory. When I was applying for university, I think I did well enough to be able to do many things. So I think a very standard degree that a lot of my friends took was to go to business. Because that's, of course, where the money is. But I couldn't live with the fact that I'm doing something for money. So I felt like financial institutions, they do have their purpose. But to me, when I do it, I don't feel like it is purposeful. So I tend to want to do something more tangible, something that I can actually show like I am doing
Like
something
some
purposeful.
technical expertise.
So I was interested in engineering.
Right.
I wouldn't say that like, okay, fast forward to now. I do consulting for the built environment in acoustics. So that in itself, right, I can see the byproduct of what I'm designing, and to me that is purpose.
Okay.
So I'm helping someone get a better environment at the end of the day when the building is built.
Right.
Compared to if I wasn't there, maybe the place would have shit acoustics. People would have bad productivity in the office.
Okay, but also just to clear the misconception, business does not equal financial institute.
Yeah.
And there are many ways that a business degree can also value add to other people's lives. I feel like it's not so much the degree you're taking, but how you utilize that knowledge.
I agree
okay,
too. I agree
continue.
too.
But
So,
I get your point.
Even if you go into, let's say, marketing, right? you can feel purpose if you feel like, I'm able to help the business grow in terms of commercial success. To some people, that is their purpose. But to me, I had to find something tangible for myself. And that is when I design something, I get to see the byproduct of it. And that makes me feel purposeful. So even people in financial institutions, sorry, let me finish. People in financial institutions, right, say they help someone invest a large sum of money and they get like 20% returns out of that $1 billion hedge fund. To them, it can be their purpose also. So purpose is really different for everyone.
But yours, you just prefer it to be more tangible.
For me, it has to make that kind of impact in that person's life, because to me, that is what matters.
Okay.
Like things like having good acoustics, or even like when I tell my friends like, oh, when you buy a computer, this is what you should look out for, because that is something that I like to go into and something that is purposeful to me. Okay, go on.
I have a theory that as to why people are so much more depressed nowadays. I feel like when you do work that there is a tangible outcome, you can see the outcome and you can see the benefit. Okay, wait, I need to shift the camera. You can see the outcome and you can see the benefit. For example, a manual labor job. Let's say I am painting something. I can physically see my work having a positive outcome. Whereas nowadays, a lot of jobs, you are so detached from the
End product.
And that's why a lot of people nowadays find that their jobs are very meaningless. Whereas in the past, right, even though the jobs are shitty, like I don't know,
You're mining coal,
cleaning sewers, but you can see what you are doing, and you can feel
Feel
it.
productive.
Yeah, and like today I did something. Whereas nowadays it's like I can sit in front of the computer, I can type a few things, and then at the end of the work
You
day,
don't really see how that.
yeah. So my theory is
Materializes.
that contributes to why depression is like so high nowadays. Thoughts?
I think maybe like to make that leap from this to depression is very far, because depression is very, it's a
Or like meaninglessness.
right. Maybe
Okay, when I say depression,
lack
I mean like
of
depression.
satisfaction. Maybe.
Yeah.
Lack of satisfaction in a job. I think that might be true, because especially like with Gen Zs and everything, right? You know nowadays that in the past, main like motivation for job used to be money. Let's say in our parents' generation, the marker for how good your job is, or even our generation a bit, like the marker for how successful you are or how good your job is a lot of the time purely based on your income, right? But then now as we progress and most of us have the privilege to already be comfortable, meaning we're not worrying about basic survival needs like food, water, shelter, etc. We have the privilege to think about higher things like self-actualization and meaning and purpose.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Then we start thinking more about like, what is my purpose in being here? What's the value that I bring? What's my meaning? And then to your point, if I'm sitting in the office for 8 hours a day and I'm spending majority of my waking living life doing something which is work, then I want to see something come out of it versus just feeling like, oh, I'm getting this done and then I'm taking my pay and going home. So I think that's where the materialization of what you're doing becomes important, because I am this existence in the universe. I'm spending 70% of my waking moment. Maybe for people in Asia, it's even like 80-90% of my waking moment. Like I spend more time at work than I do spend with my family and friends and whatever. And then I want to know that these waking hours that I'm putting into this, what I'm doing is actually tangible versus I'm doing as a process to get by in life, which maybe might be a bit of how like our parents used to think about it. Like, I'm doing this work for the sake of taking income and then living my life outside. Now it's like, my job has to provide meaning. My job has to provide like a higher order purpose.
You know,
Something like that.
I think that is a late millennial thing.
Yeah.
But I think for Gen Zs now, right, I have seen a lot of people, they understand that the job is the job. so they have to do it anyway, and then they make the best out of whatever happens after. So what they do is, there's a lot of memes about Gen Zs trying to quiet quit or like do as little as possible. So I think that's what they're trying to do, to make the most of whatever is after their job. And they want as much time as possible after their job so that they make sure they end right at their end time.
This is very interesting actually. I think there are like two different trains of thought. So one is, and maybe you're right, maybe it's like our generation. So okay, parents' generation is I work to survive.
Yeah.
I work hard so I bring as much money as I can. Then our generation become like I want the high earning pay and I want the prestige, but at the same time I want to know that I'm important and meaningful and valuable. And then now there's this new train of thought coming up that is like I'm here to exist to just take your corporation's money and go and fuck off and live my life outside. So strictly 9 to 5, don't make me OT, don't make me do extra.
Don't make me come into office. I'll just work in Bali in the fucking cafe until 8 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
Don't expect more from me. I'm just gonna
Digital nomad.
Yeah.
buzzwords.
Digital nomad.
But
You know what I think? All this mentality is fucking privileged mentality.
it is.
We're all
it
so
is.
fucking
It is.
privileged.
I read this like Twitter this tweet that said something like
It's X.
like our parents' generation had to like live for survival, like think about survival, and we have the privilege of thinking about self-actualization.
Yeah.
And what a privilege it is for us to worry about finding meaning and purpose, words that didn't used to exist in the past. Like last time you asked them what's your meaning, you're like, what the fuck, I just want to bring home like potatoes for my
It's the
family.
sweet
But
potatoes.
on the flip side, not saying that I don't agree with you, I totally agree, but on the flip side, when things were like that in the past, when they were fighting for survival, things were actually a lot easier.
No,
Not easier, I think straightforward.
Straightforward.
not easier. Yeah, straightforward maybe, because you don't think so.
You know what's the biggest scam of all century?
What?
The agricultural revolution.
I see we're
Why?
taking a pivot. Let's go.
No, serious. You think about it, right? The agricultural revolution, right, is what started this wheel of progress and capitalism and
So
blah,
you
blah,
think we
blah.
shouldn't have had progress?
No, okay, we've had progress. Are we any happier?
No. But you need to understand that, like,
Actually, I don't agree with this point, but I'm just...
Yeah, but I think it's a fair point to bring up, because
No,
I always thought that when people
Used to
in
hunt,
the past, right, used to just stay in their own small little hut, they are self-sufficient, or they try to be self-sufficient, they are still happy, right?
No, guys. I think we have a very myopic point of view on this, because, for example, you can say that people are...
battery's dead.
Oh, I guess we're about to end anyways. No, I was gonna make the point that even when people were, let's say, quote unquote happier,
I'm not even sure if that last video was
fine.
recorded.
we were trash talking a lot. No, I was gonna say, like, if you take a look at statistics, right, and you should read the book Factfulness. It's very interesting. Basically,
I
it
know
talks
that
about...
book.
Yeah, it's a very good book.
It's quite small.
Like
paper,
how we try to perceive that, like, oh, things in the past are different, better, blah blah blah. A lot of this is like hindsight bias. And actually, the reason why progress was important is because it, in general, everyone is a bit better off. Like less people die of starvation. There are less diseases.
It's
blah blah blah.
factfulness.
It's not really for like, oh, more happiness. I mean, yes, it brings more happiness if you're not sick all the time. But should I stop this thing? Okay, bye.